The COVID-19 pandemic has raised the spectre of food insecurity as countries and citizens fear a return to the conditions that roiled the international food markets during the 2008 economic crisis. Though food markets have withstood the shock caused by COVID-19, the Caribbean is being forced to take stock of its vulnerability. The region spends $5 billion US annually on food imports from outside the region to feed its 44 million inhabitants, and regional governments agree there is need for innovation to reduce this dependency on foreign food supplies. Governments have been talking for years about using e-commerce to support the region's agricultural sector. According to the Food Sustainability Index created by the Barilla Centre for Food and Nutrition and the Economist Intelligence Unit, governments also need to do more collaborating among themselves to avoid a repeat of the food crisis during the 2008 economic crisis. I am IPS Caribbean correspondent Jewel Fraser, and in this Voices from the Global South podcast, I learned from the Food and Agriculture Organization how the global pandemic may yet shift the region's focus in how it tackles food insecurity, while an e-commerce food retailer explains how the Caribbean can make better use of technology to feed itself.
My name is Tamara Luz. I am the founder and executive director of digital strategy for Monovan Digital Marketing Solutions. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago, and I currently reside in the U.S.
Tamara Luz wanted to keep her 81-year-old mother in the Caribbean well-fed and safe during the pandemic, knowing she was in that particularly vulnerable age group. But Tamara lives in Orlando, Florida, while her mother lives hundreds of miles away in Trinidad and Tobago.
You know, my mom lived in the U.S. She moved back home. She retired. You know, she owns her house. She's comfortable, so takes care of herself financially. I'm her daughter, so if I could do anything additional to make her life easier, of course, I try to do that. You know, my mom's 81, so you know, she's in that age group that the pandemic has been hitting extremely hard. So, you know, my concerns for her were just like, I don't want you to go outside. I don't want you to do these things. Really making sure that she stayed away from everybody and followed the social distancing rules, be extra careful. I found that it was easy to, you know, order groceries for her, just kind of, communicate with her. So it's convenient. It gets delivered to the house and she can get it without having to come in contact with people in the grocery store, because I don't know how social distancing is happening in the grocery store in Trinidad. It was just a way to make sure that she's safe. So it's just easy and convenient to be able to buy it online and send it to her and know that she gets it. You get a picture of her sometimes when she gets it.
FAO coordinator for the Caribbean subregion, Dr. Renata Clark, says during the pandemic, the region's food security concerns are not so much about hunger, but about unhealthy diets and the resulting non-communicable diseases, which make Caribbean people more vulnerable to COVID-19.
This COVID problem is unfolding, and we're seeing what it's done to tourism, what it's doing to unemployment, what it's doing to livelihoods. There's some dire projections about what will be the impact on national GDP. Yes, the chief economist has warned us that based on projections of what is going to be the impact on hunger and food security, and with those sorts of numbers for the economic loss and downturn, could, in a pessimistic scenario, could mean that the global hungry will once again increase to over 80 million. Hunger is not a widespread problem in the Caribbean, but we need to see what is happening, and we need to put measures in place to make sure that does not change. We need to be very careful of the vulnerable populations and how they will be managing. So there are pockets of undernourishment associated with poverty around the Caribbean, but these are truly limited pockets of undernourishment in the Caribbean. The bigger problem, perhaps, relates to unhealthy eating. So in the Caribbean, there is, of course, a problem of micronutrient deficiency. In other words, maybe we're eating enough calories, we're getting enough energy, but the foods that we're eating are not particularly nutritional. We're missing some key nutrients. They're not nutrient dense. And this results in people suffering from some micronutrient deficiencies like iron or vitamin A. But the biggest problem in the Caribbean, of course, relates to obesity and all of the related non-communicable diseases that go along with it. You know, the statistics are actually quite amazing. We were preparing a paper some time ago and I was digging around for statistics. And in Barbados, the estimated cost of NCDs was 200 million Barbados per year. And that would costs plus costs attributed to lost productivity. And for Jamaica, the per capita cost of the obesity epidemic was twice the per capita GDP. So it's not a minor problem and it hasn't gone away. Now that we're in a COVID period, the issue of NCDs was already pressing. It's a leading cause of death and it had major economic costs. And in the context of COVID, as we're seeing, it's that people suffering from NCDs are having much worse health outcomes in the case of infection. So, you know, so healthy eating, okay, in the context of food security, healthy diets, healthy eating is a priority in the Caribbean.
The Caribbean diaspora in one recent year sent back to the region $11 billion US. D Market Movers Limited co-founder Rachael Rennie tells us how her online food delivery business has helped Trinidadians living overseas contribute to making sure their families back home have healthy diets during the pandemic.
My name is Rachael Ronnie, and I'm the co-founder of D Market Movers Limited. It's Trinidad and Tobago's first online delivery service of greengrocer fresh produce items. So Market Movers Limited was co-founded by myself and David Thomas, my business partner. D Market Movers, it's really a business that combines both health and convenience. We saw that, you know, where the future was headed. I mean, 11 years ago, just the idea of people shopping online in the Caribbean was a very new concept. And worse yet, buying food on the internet. You know, those trends were already happening in the US and more developed countries. But I think what we understood was that, you know, the influence that those countries have on us and how quickly we adopt those practices here in the Caribbean and specifically Trinidad and Tobago. So for us, we sort of knew that people would start getting into more health and wellness. I mean, we saw the effects that people working all day, you know, not having access to healthy meals and the effects of chronic illnesses and things like that were developing. So we really recognized that, you know, something had to be done. We had to be able to bring the freshest ingredients to persons, but in the most convenient way.
So you mentioned you've seen an increase in business since the COVID-19 pandemic. Could you, first of all, quantify that for us and tell us where most of those new orders have come from?
Yeah, so COVID-19, I mean, our service it wasn't seen as a luxury, but a necessity. And I think that shift was very important in helping us gain and increase customers by over 500% during this period. It's really significant. We were able to increase online retail sales by over 500%. We've had online registrations and new users increased by almost 800%. Our diaspora segment of customers has grown, I would say, by about 25%. I say during this time, a lot of people felt powerless, and I think it gave the diaspora a sense of control again, where more of them now can send food for their family and home who really, really need it. So I think that was a unique experience dealing with the diaspora segment, where it's not just sending a nice birthday gift or basket or fruit basket home. It's not only that, it's like sending necessities. And I think people really, really are grateful for a service like ours, that they can be able to trust and send food to their families here in need. So the diaspora segment in our business has grown significantly, where they are able to shop online and purchase grocery and food items, greengrocer items, healthy foods for their families back home here in Trinidad and Tobago, and have it delivered to their homes, because they know now, their family can't leave the house, especially if they have elderly family, things like that. We also offer free delivery to all elderly persons for them. So they feel a real sense of power and control, that they can now help their families here at home when they need them the most.
Apart from the need for healthier diets, Dr. Renata Clark says another food security issue for the region is the stability of the food supply chain. She told Voices from the Global South that regional governments believe e-commerce can help alleviate concerns over the food supply by enabling trade of agricultural products within the region.
You raised the issue of the food imports. And that is another aspect of food security, which is the stability of your food supplies. If something goes wrong, do you still have access to food? Because access to food is driven by, is it there? Is there physical access? Is there economic access? Can you buy it? Can you afford it? But there is this issue of stability, and for countries that are so dependent on imports, if something goes wrong with the supply chains, this is an issue, and it's an issue that has been concerning Caribbean countries for quite a while. This is part of the reason why there was this food domestic production increased drive to reduce food imports. The reaction to COVID, the planning for COVID, is very much led through CARICOM, as it rightly should be. It is the governments that are setting the course, and it is the technical agencies and development agencies who are supporting them in this course. And CARICOM has, in relation to food supplies and food security and agricultural development, CARICOM has very much taken the lead. There is a CARICOM platform where ministers and senior officials sit alongside private sector and civil society groups to be sharing information of different types. So they've already developed, ministers of agriculture have agreed on a CARICOM COVID-19 agri-food plan. They have established a platform with a very pragmatic goal of providing information among countries about who has what to sell and who wants to buy what. So this facilitation of intra-regional trade, we've been hearing about it for a long time, hearing about all of the frustrations to intra-regional trade. And now we hear that, in the face of this adversity, the light bulb has gone on and action is being taken. And all of this is happening through a CARICOM platform facilitated by the CARICOM Secretariat. So it's a very dynamic and a very exciting period. There is a lot going on.
Am I to understand that there's a focus now as well on promoting e-commerce for agriculture in the region to help boost food security?
Okay, well, e-commerce has been promoted for quite a while across the globe as a way of giving better or easier, facilitating market access for developing countries. In a COVID context, where countries are seeking to ramp up domestic production, but at the same time make sure that the producers are optimizing their benefit, that they are linked as directly as possible to markets. You can imagine that e-platforms for selling their produce is an important mechanism. And there is a lot of work that is going on now to be supporting countries and producers within countries to be having more successful marketing of their produce using these e-commerce platforms. FAO is in discussion with ITU at the moment about a program for promoting digital agriculture in the region. There's a lot that's already going on, and the COVID has underlined the importance to find all efficiencies wherever they can be realized.
I see. Thank you. I did read this morning that the OECS is looking at launching, or they have started to launch, a virtual marketplace for agriculture.
Yes, and this again is linked to this desire, this long-standing desire to enhance intra-regional trade. So imagine suddenly you have countries across the Caribbean region that are seeking to be increasing domestic production. To be able to plan that production well and plan, if you plan to produce, you better know what you're doing with what you've produced. Otherwise, you're just creating for waste. Okay, we don't want farmers wasting their time and then food rotting in the fields. So we need production planning, we need coordination, we need clear information about buying and selling, market opportunities being facilitated. So these initiatives for better market information systems, better systems for production projections, virtual marketplaces, these are all in recognition of the fact that we not only need to produce, but we need to have clear ideas of how and to whom and under what conditions we're going to sell.
D-Market Movers Rachael Rennie acknowledges that supply chains are critical for any food market and tells me how she has worked to secure her supply network.
With anything, your value chain and your supply network is key for any business. So for us, it always felt like, how could we get the best ingredients? So whenever we bought from like a middleman or a buyer, you know, it was him going straight to the farm and getting it and then selling it to us, and then us selling it to the consumer. And, you know, obviously the market was the first place you would go. But we realized quickly that relationship with farmers is really integral, because we want to be able to, our promise is to bring the healthiest foods. And in order to do that, we need to be able to access the freshest ingredients. So we tend to go straight to the farms for that. We do explore our own, where we plant certain things, and we build relationships, long-standing relationships with our farmers. So we invest in them a lot. You know, we understand that farming is not today, it's you know, years from now, and how are you going to scale and grow your farm, much like a business. And it takes investment, it takes having a reliable water source. You know, there's all these inputs that you have to be able to manage. And in order to do so, we know we have to invest in our farmers so that they can supply us consistently over time. So it's really important to us to invest in our farmers and the people that, you know, supply us with the foods and products that we sell.
So how many farmers are there that you work with? Question number one. And two, how do you invest in them?
Right. So we work with, I would say, over 150 farmers currently. We have a network of about 300 or so. And I mean, it took a really long time to build that network. And as with farmers, you know, through that network, you know, they will recommend us to other farmers and say, you know, they pay on time, they support you. Ways in which we invest in our farmers is we would pay upfront for a 1 month's worth of supply. So they can take that money upfront and invest in one of our farmers dug a pond so that he can have a continuous water supply all year. So that in dry season, he would still have water because he would have collected in his pond during the rainy season. So these are ways in which we can at least support the farmers. Not everything is money, you know, sometimes farmers just need to be able to, you know, have a conversation, talk about what they're doing. We visit all our farmers We have a really good relationship with most of them. And that's really how we try to invest, because at the end of the day, it's a person that's growing this fast. So,
while e-commerce platforms have definite advantages for ensuring food security, there are many challenges in relation to trust and technology, the FAO's Dr. Clark says.
Well, of course, for e-commerce to work, we need trusted, there's an information technology element. In other words, the availability of it, the access of it, the reliability of it, the safety of it. In other words, that they're not, people's transactions are not being intercepted. So there's the availability of the systems. And there are also other issues around regulatory frameworks that facilitate it, that define the responsibilities of buyers and sellers on these platforms. So it's a readiness for e-commerce and for digital agriculture. It requires an enabling environment that many countries so far have not systematically analyzed, considered, and prepared for.
D-Market Movers Limited faced those challenges mentioned by Dr. Clark, and Rachael Rennie tells me how her company proactively dealt with them.
I guess the time that we started the business, we started this in 2009. So just that alone, just being ahead of the curve and being in a time when not everyone had a personal computer, not everyone had a smartphone. So having customers go online to shop, it was a very new concept. A lot of the hurdles that we faced were, just having customers believe or trust that, this was a real service. We would have people call the phone and ask if it's a scam. It was pretty funny at first, but once we delivered to them and, we offered things like money back guarantee and or only pay us if you're satisfied. So we offered a lot of things to gain that trust with our customers. However, once the customers, the early adopters, the ones that took it on, as I said, they kept buying, they kept shopping with us. They trusted us to pick out the best and freshest produce for them. So that was a big benchmark for us. And I think it worked out really well, and it helped us overcome that challenge, because once they trusted us, then it became part of their routine and their livelihood. So having an online business, and in an age where, digital marketing is such a growth space, it's really, there's a lot of ways to innovate marketing for businesses like ours. Of course, we have a very unique position where we're balanced between a very traditional space, which is, shopping for fresh produce. It's such a tangible experience, and people want to touch and feel and look at what they buy. So trust is a big part of our service, and balancing, being an online store, having the latest trends, things like quick checkouts, easier path to purchase, convenient software, things like that help the consumer shop easier on the website. So it's a great balance that we have in maintaining usability on the website, as well as, engaging that personal experience and feeling. So it's something that we work really hard on. We do, social media marketing, digital, social, through Facebook, Instagram, things like that. We run ads, we have Google ads. But a big part of our business, of course, is word of mouth. So for us, it's always, every customer we get is a form of marketing for us, because once we deliver something trusted and quality, they're going to tell someone else. So we have a loyalty program where every time you shop on a site, you gain loyalty points, which can be redeemed to get discounts on your orders, on your future orders. We also have promotions like a free fruit box on every 4th delivery. So every time you reach your 4th delivery, you would get a free fruit box from us. So it sort of incentivizes customers to continue to shop with us.
Let's talk a little bit more about the technology you're using. Is there an app that people can use to go to your website? And what sort of website are you using? Is it an e-commerce site on WordPress?
So we currently have an e-commerce site on PrestaShop. So that's where our site is built on.
I've never heard of it.
PrestaShop.
PrestaShop.
Yeah, so it's like a cart, an online cart, e-commerce cart.
Okay.
So you can list your products on there, and that's why people shop on our website. So we don't have an app. Our website is just mobile ready, so it can be used on mobile phones, tablets, laptops. For us, we just found building an app would have been more costly, as well as maintaining it, and also a good percentage of our customers actually still use their computers to shop on our website. So it is something that, we consider when we're using technology in our business. So we're still able to maintain that. I mean, for us, it's successes, especially with our online business, is our market segment is still pretty small. So for us, it's not so much about having 1 million online users, but it's more about, do these online users come back and keep shopping on the site? And we have a very high repeat rates in terms of orders and things like that. So for us, like, that's a sign of success, that our customers keep using our service, most of them weekly, bi-weekly. It's become a staple in their habits and livelihoods. Another trial, I would say, is getting funding. Of course, I mean, with any small business at the beginning, it's always a challenge. I think people saw the business model as risky, that it was, according to some of the loans officers, they were like, Trinidadians would never buy food on the internet. So we faced a lot of trials early on where just the business community and people didn't really take us seriously. Our banks now, they offer us overdraft facilities and support us in any way because they've recognized the main thing is the consistency. And I think being able to remain stable and continuously grow in a very niche, innovative space is something that, banks can really, they run off of data. So over an 11-year period, to demonstrate that we can still manage and grow our business given all those challenges, I think is really important. So we were able to overcome that. And a service like this has proven its merit and strength conveniently during this time. I mean, it's unfortunate that COVID-19 had to bring that out, but it did demonstrate that all the hard work and planning that we put in place and all the measures that we put in place are able to withstand a time like this, where we can now service 500% more customers in a short space of time without crumbling.
Digital marketer Tamara Luz also tells me why issues of trust loom large in the Caribbean context.
Yeah, totally. Currently, we're all using American industry standards and benchmarks, and Caribbean people just behave differently online. They take a little bit of it, they don't buy as quickly. There's a little bit of education that has to go with it. They have to do some brand awareness and really build to know the brand before they make that purchase. So, it's just about understanding that, Caribbean folks behave just slightly different online, and which we can appeal to those behaviors, then I think it's easy to get them to a place where they continue to buy and shop online.
Rachael Rennie believes online food services like hers make a major contribution to ensuring stable food supplies in the region.
Businesses like ours are very important in, adding value to Trinidad and Tobago and Caribbean. What it does is have persons utilize more local food. Of course, that's less cross-contamination. Local foods have a higher nutritional content, mainly because it's picked fresh. It's a shorter distance from the farm to you. Eating foods that grow that are indigenous to where you live are important in any diet. Foods like that maintain all the properties that you need. So I think there's a health benefit, there's an economic benefit, as well as just a better environmental impact. I mean, knowing that you're eating lettuce that was grown and harvested just maybe like, a couple days before, as opposed to eating something that was harvested months before, then shipped to you, then a truck had to go to another place, and then another thing had to come to you. The environmental impact is obviously a great win. So businesses like ours really help push the local agenda, as well as improve the overall health and wellness of the community at large. The more people buy local food, the more farmers can again invest in making this sustainable. They're not just going to think about short-term crops, they're going to start investing in long-term crops. Those are things that cost money. It takes time, it's investment to wait a year for a pineapple or 9 months for a pawpaw. So those are big impacts that they can have on tea and sustainability and just keeping our country fed, especially if something like this would happen again, where transit of food and things like that are locked down. So it's really important.
Rachael Rennie and Tamara Luz share their final thoughts on why technology must play a role in ensuring the Caribbean can feed itself.
I think agri-innovation and agri-tech is something that, people think it either has to be extreme or it's just not really possible. And I think there's a lot of ways that we could innovate in the food space, in the food sector. We were able to recognize gaps all along our business lifeline. We have a company called Market Movers Design, where we design packaging for local food companies. Because what we found is, if we don't invest in local spaces and food spaces, they're not going to take us seriously. So we wanted local food to look good. So we create amazing packaging, design amazing packaging for local brands so that we can compete fairly on the shelf. And we're not just limited by, having to look a certain way or sell at a certain price. We can add value to the things that we have grown locally here. So I think agri-innovation is something that it can come in many forms. So you don't have to only think in the most traditional ways. There's so many ways and opportunities that you can innovate food, especially during this time.
Great. Thank you very much, Rachael.
You can't immerse yourself into digital 100% and then step back away from it because you understand the conveniences. As we've seen with COVID-19, especially in the US, it has been the online companies that have risen to the top, right? So too is it in the Caribbean. The online companies will rise to the top.
This is Jewel Fraser looking at food security for the Caribbean during the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for listening to this Voices from the Global South podcast.